Welcome to the weekly Challa Law webinars. And so for those who are joining us for the first time, thanks for joining. And for those who have been listening to our webinar every week, thank you for your dedicated participation. I love connecting with you guys on immigration and answering your immigration questions every week. So let's give it a few minutes to get everyone, to get all the folks in, and then we can go ahead and get started. Just some administrative rules. Please post your questions on the Q&A. At the end of this session, we'll have a Q&A that'll be moderated by Attorney Challa, but don't post your questions on the chat because it's easier to make sure that we've answered everyone's questions if it's on the Q&A. So with that, let us go ahead and get started. Give it about a minute. I know people sometimes join in halfway, and we would have covered some of the questions that they would have had. But I think let's get to it. So today, as I've told you before, there are different ways to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Telegram. We've got a Telegram group, and in these different ways, we send out messages and updates differently depending upon the mechanism. So if you haven't connected with us on one of our social media sites, please do. We'd love to hear your comments, share. And we have a YouTube site. So if you missed any of our previous webinars, you can always go back and review them on our YouTube channel. Please make sure that you comment. I love to hear from you. Share. We have a lot of chock full of really great resources, and we will be putting forth a lot more, whether it's issues relating to remote work or posting notices when you're at home, for H-1Bs and for PERM, what to do for a PERM. We have all these resources available to you where I walk through them in a very clear manner to try to give you as much information to make sure you're successful on your immigration journey. So this is for you. And if there's any topic you'd like us to cover, please email us at info@challalaw.com. Today, we're going to go over the USCIS delays and backlogs, navigating the USCIS contact center, biometrics, some tips and tricks and best practices for using Emma, a USCIS virtual assistant, and crafting your immigration strategy for 2021. Suggestions and tips and advice for your success. So let's get started. Navigating the new USCIS. I know a lot of you are disappointed that you have not seen a lot of business immigration reform in terms of the proclamation ban on visas and so forth. I can assure you that we're working really hard to make sure your voice is heard. And in fact, recently a Wall Street Journal article said it was really critical, not only on the family separation issue, but also on an economic issue, because it's really important to get all these critical workers back to the US. So there's a lot of people making a lot of buzz about it. People are still going forward with court challenges to make sure that, you know, it's almost like, what is it, the squeaky wheel? So to make sure that they're your squeaky wheels, to make sure that your issues are addressed. So biometric appointments are still being rescheduled from last year's COVID closures. They were closed from March to June. And there's so many appointments that are, so many people that are still waiting for appointments, even in December. For H4 EADs, the processing time is like 7 to 10 months. And some people are reporting longer waits. and USCIS is not expediting in most cases. The F1 OPT EADs are also taking 6 months, which is ridiculous. The students can remain while pending, so their status is not impacted, but they can't work till it's approved. And when you only have 1 year on regular OPT, then it makes it even more challenging. Now, extensions can still work as long as the extension was timely, but the issue is for I-9 purposes, you would need a receipt notice. And so the receipt notice delays are still really long. It's taking about 3 or 4 months in some case types. I-45s that were filed in November and December are still being processed. I-45J notices are issued weeks after the I-45 receipt notices. So if you haven't received your I-45J receipt notices, don't worry. We're seeing that there is, for some reason, a delay in issuance of those. The other thing we have noted is that there was a brief period of time where I-45Js, if you filed very early, there was a court order that stayed the requirement of the I-45J, of the 944. So on the public charge rule. So if your petition was rejected based on lack of an I-944, don't worry about it. You just resubmit and you state that because of the court order, the I-944 during that period was not required, and therefore they should not have, they unlawfully rejected your I-45. Now, USCIS is issuing rejections for checks being past their validity period, despite the delay is solely on the fault of the USCIS. So even with those, you would just resubmit and cite to the fact that it was their delay and that you should not be penalized as a result of an issue that they created. So those are some tips to navigate any type of unlawful rejections that you see from the USCIS. The Ombudsman Office may be able to assist with some of these inquiries, but they urge the individuals to contact USCIS first. Wait 60 days after filing. You can check your bank account to see if your check was received. And if it was cashed, on the back of the check, as I've stated before, you'll find the receipt notice, or receipt number rather. So at least you can feel comfortable that you have the receipt number for your cases, with the receipt notice coming in shortly thereafter. Well, maybe not so shortly thereafter, but it'll be forthcoming. If the checks have not been cashed, contact the USCIS. If the USCIS can't give you a response, then you can make another inquiry after 30 days and contact the CIS Ombudsman's Office. For biometrics, to extend or change status still require an in-person biometrics appointment at the Application Support Center. If you require to reschedule, you have to contact them at least 2 weeks prior to, or as soon as you possibly can. If your dates pass, the request will be placed in back of the biometric schedule. So it would substantially delay your ability to get your biometrics appointment. So, just make sure you do that. If you have to reschedule, I wouldn't reschedule if I were you. They're taking so long to get them. I would try to make that appointment. But if you must reschedule, make sure you give it at least 2 weeks so you're not put in back of the line. And each application support center and local offices have different different COVID protocols. How early can you arrive? How many people can arrive? Things like that. So you want to check out the website and find out what the individual protocols are before you attend. If more than 90, 120 days, it used to be more than 90, but now 110, 120 days pass since the filing was submitted and no biometrics appointment has been scheduled, you can contact your USCIS contact center and ask to be put in the queue. Provide a cell phone number in case the officer calls back after hours on weekend, and record the case number inquiry. Make sure you write that down. They'll give you, anytime you call the USCIS contact center, they'll give you an inquiry number. So you want to make sure you write that down that you can reference down the road. And you can file a case inquiry online using outside the normal time or did not receive my notice by mail option. So there's some things that you can do to be more proactive while this new administration is trying to navigate through all the things that they have to change. So I think that the changes will be forthcoming. They just are not coming as quickly as we had hoped earlier. Requesting an expedite on a biometrics case is a case-by-case basis. So severe financial loss to the company or person, did you file a benefit request or expedite in a reasonable time frame? Have you responded to any requests for additional evidence in a timely manner? There are urgent humanitarian reasons for it. And then finally, there's compelling government interests. Let's say that you were working on something that is in the national interest of the United States, especially COVID related, then this could be a mechanism that you could use to try to get an expedited biometrics appointment. So when you call the USCIS contact center, you say, I would like to place an expedite request or an expedite biometrics appointment. Request a tier 1 representative to escalate it to tier 2 USCIS officer. You have to make that request. They won't do it otherwise. And you have to urge them. So you just can't say, hey, can you do it? You have to kind of be a little aggressive in asking for that expedite request. Provide a cell phone number in case the tier 2 officer wants to respond back either after hours or on weekends. Make sure you record, as I stated, the case inquiry number. And then if you don't hear back, call back in 2 to 7 business days. And you have that case inquiry number that you can provide to them to say, hey, I called the other day and I didn't get a response. And although the USCIS is not supposed to, they're not required to provide a reason for denying an expedite request, but the key is going to be how you make your case. So, write down notes as to what the reason is for the expedite. Make sure you hit all those notes. Sometimes it's hard to think when you're talking to an official off the cuff. So it's good to have, some notes and some issues that you can jot down and say, this is the reason for the request. And the U.S. Contact Center phone tree system was recently updated to be completely speech enabled. Callers must go through the interactive voice response system before reaching live assistance. Be patient. You can't immediately call a tier 1 officer, and USCIS has stated that a high volume of callers, if not engaged, using the interactive phone response, and which has put a strain on USCIS resources and is actually creating or increasing wait times. So be mindful of that. Again, please put your questions in the Q&A. Don't put them in the chat box. It's better if it's in the Q&A. Navigating through the USCIS contact center, the contractor will determine the severity of the inquiry and will escalate it as either urgent or regular. So that's why you've got to make sure that you are able to communicate your urgency and articulate it. And that's why making notes and jotting down exactly what you're going to say and how it meets the requirements for the expedite is really critical. because urgent inquiries get a call back within 48 hours. Regular inquiries get a call back within 7 business days. Oops. And checking your case status. USCIS requires, like we said, to engage with IVR, the interactive voice response system, to check case status first. You can also email USCIS, and here are the email addresses. Call or communicate early in the week. Don't leave your urgent inquiries for a Friday. Provide your cell phone number, and make sure your cell phone settings are not blocking unknown callers in case they call back. Tips for speaking to a live person. Here is the USCIS contact center. Say InfoPass, and you'll be placed in a queue to talk to an agent. No callback options are available. Get a live person. That's how you can get an InfoPass appointment. Now, those appointments are very limited because of COVID, so be cognizant of that. Secondly, you could contact the USCIS contact center. Say Expedite request or Expedite Biometrics. You'll be placed in a queue, and then eventually you'll get a live person. So here are the numbers that you would need to make those 2 types of inquiries. Now, if you want to reschedule your biometrics appointment, you'd have to say reschedule interview or reschedule biometric appointments, and again, go forward with the live person. Keep writing in live chat, talking to Emma, and save a recording of the chat. Ask for the agent's ID if it doesn't appear. And that way you can probably get some, the more you, like I said, the squeaky wheel, this is all about the squeaky wheel. The more you are an advocate of your own immigration, outcome, the better you can be. So, but that means that you have to be able to really make your case, basically. Additional strategic considerations. If you haven't heard, they have outlined what the registration is for H-1B CAP. And so registration starts March through the 25th. Those who are selected, the notifications will be sent out on the 31st, which is still crazy to me. And of course, you can file at the earliest October 1st. So if you haven't started, and it is time now to go ahead and make sure you get registered for your H-1B CAP season. The time is coming up soon. There are continued flexibility for responses for appeals, motions to reopen, extended through March 31st. Responses received 60 days after the response due date will be considered. So that's good to know that they're giving you some reprieve. So crafting your immigration strategy. As I said, I know that everyone's hearing about, how, there's a lot of buzz about providing relief for the folks that are illegally here. But another initiative that will be passed, because President Biden said he's going to do immigration in piecemeal, is probably going to be the immigration backlogs. So the only way you can benefit from that is if you have a perm pending. A perm approved. Because as soon as the backlogs are addressed, you'll be able to file an I-140 and 485 at the same time, or file an I-140 expedited, and then you'd be able to leverage the I-485. But if you don't have it, then that can be problematic. If you think that there are issues with if you filed in November and October, November, and you think that there may be a problem with your petition, this may be a time to maybe refile, like, for example, ability to pay. So that could be a consideration that you could take care of. So we're going to get to the Q&A section. Remember to join us, sorry about that, on our Telegram group. I'm sure my team will send you the links. please share it with your friends. I'd really appreciate that, so we can have a larger community that we can talk to. And connect with us. I'd love connecting with all of you on one of our social media platforms. And if you haven't, take a listen to some of our webinars that maybe have helped you, especially in some of these situations that I addressed earlier. Subscribe, comment. I'd love to hear from you. Share with your friends. The more people that we can impact and the more people that we can reach, the better your voice can be heard. And if you have any additional questions, you can always email us at info@challalaw.com. Or if there's a specific topic you want us to cover, you can address it at info@challalaw.com. The next couple of weeks, I'm going to be really focusing on a lot of the H-1B issues with H-1B cap season coming up. So, make sure that you tell me if there's something else you want us to cover. So info@challalaw.com. And with that, let's start the Q&A, and welcome Shekhar Challa.
Good afternoon, everybody. Lakshmi, thank you for the opportunity. Hope everybody's doing well on middle of the week, comp day as they call it. So hope you all who was following cricket probably got excited India winning the test in Chennai, leveling the series. So let's hope they'll win the next two and go to Lords in England to play the World Test Championship final against New Zealand. All right. With that, let's go to Sohail Safair. A marriage-based I-130 is pending since 2017. What is the best option to expedite?
What's pending since 2017?
A marriage-based I-130 is pending since 2017.
Oh, wow. That's strange. Why is it pending for so long? Did you get any RFE, or if you haven't gotten an RFE?
Just stop for a minute. Everybody, when after I read the question, if Lakshmi has a further clarification, I think it would be easier if you respond in the chat. That way I can see it immediately. If you put it in the Q&A, then I have to scroll down and then I may miss it. So go ahead, sorry.
So that is one that would really, you should do a case inquiry, either both by email and by calling to find out what's going on. That's incredibly long for a marriage-based case.
Well, he says the husband was in jail.
Oh, was he in jail for?
You can send a message in the chat directly to us, the host, if you don't want to put it in the.
Right, and what you can do is you can email with something like this. Email us at info@challalaw.com, because there's a lot of questions that we would have in order to respond to that in a intelligent manner.
All right, so he says interview request came in January 2018. He came out in 2019 and says will do. So maybe she's going to send an email. So we'll wait for your email. It's a little more personal issue. All right, let's go to Prem Potter. If I enter using AP and continue working on H1, and then in future, can I choose to go for H1 visa stamping?
Yes.
Okay, as simple as that. Hubert Johansson, I hope that I said it correctly. What is processing time for E2 visa at the moment? I and my common law wife are citizens of Sweden. Hello from Sweden. We run 2 profitable companies and are interested to set up a subsidiary in North Carolina where we will personally manage the business for the first 2 years if needed longer.
Oh, it's fantastic. You can actually, Sweden, I believe, is one of the faster processing places. What they will do is they will look at your business first, and they will approve the eligibility for the E, and then they will issue the visa. But one of the key elements to that is a business plan. You want to make sure you have a great business plan. You want to talk about, any leads or any market inroads you've already made to the US to talk about the viability of it. What I would do is if you email us at info@challalaw.com, we can send you some resources on E2 processing that would help you as you put this together.
All right. Let's go to Prem Pathak. He says, Lakshmiji, do you think all spillovers what employment category got in last October will be used timely? As per current trend, it seems that new admin is not interested in using those spillovers.
No, they are going to use the spillovers. And there's going to be further reform on the backlog. So I think you'll see both those things in the next coming weeks, but I do understand your frustration in not hearing more about them, but they are using them, and they will, you will see greater relief in that area.
All right. Karthik Rajashekaran is asking, once I have crossed 180 days of pending 485 and I-140 is approved, and if I have joined a new company using AC21 on EAD, what will happen if employer withdraws I-140? Will it be a problem to my 485 or future GC?
No, because once the I-140 is approved, the I-485 has been pending. That's the receipt date from the adjustment. And you're working in same or similar employment, you are able to port even to your self-employment without having worry about whatever the previous employer does to your I-140, even if he withdraws it, he or she withdraws it.
He's got another question, part 2. If I move to new employer on EAD after 180 days of 485, what should I do to interfile to EB2 in case if it moves faster? Should I reapply PERM I-140 at a new employer? What's your advice for my PD 2014? Should I move using EAD or H-1B?
You should always try to have an H-1B as a safety net. That's always the best way to go. Now, if you change employers after the 180 days, the I-140 is approved and it's same and similar, and you have a previously approved I-140 and EB2 for that previous employer, you can try to use that for interfiling. And interfiling, there's no form. You would just simply send the USCIS your EB2 and ask them to attach that to your adjustment filing. Use the receipt notice for your adjustments so they know which file to attach it to.
All right, let's go to Vignesh Reddy. I am now pursuing a second master's and I graduated from my first master's in May 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I'd applied for OPT, but the application got denied after my DSO made a mistake in the application by not updating the SVP portal in a timely, and I was not able to reapply again since I received the response on my application after 60 days of my grace period. Can I request any kind of compensation or sue the college for the inconvenience caused? I think he asked this question last week, but he did not ask whether he can sue the college.
Yeah, I think you may have a cause of action against the institution if that's what they did and they were negligent. But the other thing is the institution can also correct it and you can get a reinstatement. You'd have to do that through the school, but did you ask to see if they'd reinstate you? Because you can get reinstated, and that's something that the DSO should be able to do, especially since they made the mistake.
He says he did not ask.
Ask for a reinstatement before you try to sue the school and see if that works.
Okay. Karthik Rajesh was talking about moving to a new company. I think on the chat I saw a response when you asked. He says, for interfile, should I be with previous company?
If the I-140 and is from the previous company. And as long as you've already ported, that means your AC-21 for your pending adjustment under EB3, 180 days, I-140 is approved, you're moving same and similar, then you don't need to worry about whether the I-140 was with the previous or with the current. That's only an issue if you're doing that before the 180 days and the approval of the I-140.
All right. Next one is from AA. Thanks for the info. Is getting biometric done a precondition to getting 485 based EAD and AP? Can you get EAD without completing biometric?
No, you need the biometrics to get. And previously, if you came in late to the webinar, we talked about ways in which you can try to get that expedited. So if you attended this webinar late, listen to it again when we post it, and we've got numbers and emails and lots of tips to help you navigate through that.
Next one is from another AA. I don't know if the same person or not. Has the USCIS reduced for processing time for green card?
Not yet, but they're working on it.
And another one from another AA. Can I use my EAD plus AP card to enter US within 180 days of AOS pending?
Yes, the only issue is you can enter on AP. You're not entering on your EAD, even though the card is one. You're entering on your advanced parole. And as long as you work for your H-1B employer, your H-1B will not be impacted. As long as you use your EAD to work for your H-1B employer. So it's not really the manner of entry. It is whether you use your EAD to work for someone other than your H-1B employer.
All right. Another one from another AA. Can I use my, okay, that's, yeah, another AA. What document should I have with me to show at port of entry? I think it's the same. How many pay stubs should I have as I'm going out for 2 months? The guy, I think a guy or girl who said, can I use my EAD AP to enter US within 180 days?
Yeah, make sure close to when you re-enter, you have a confirmation of employment letter from your employer. And, just your recent, I would say 3 months worth of pay stubs before you depart.
All right. I think we answered Karthik's thing about interfile from the previous company. Another AA, my husband's asylum was approved back in May 2015. Hence, he applied for I-485. It's still pending. I'm a Pakistani citizen, have a B1, B2, attained a spouse in December 2018. Attained a spouse, I don't know what that means. Maybe he got married. Oh no, she got married. Is there anything that can be done in my case?
Yeah, you should be able to. If you're in valid status, you have to be in valid status. But if you're in valid status, you should be able to attach your adjustment to your spouse's.
Okay. Heather McKenzie. She says, great presentation. If an I-765 is filed months after the original AOS, one step was filed, does a separate fee have to be submitted, or if the original I-485 fee, 485 was a fee paid, I guess, in with the $1,225, would that cover the fee?
I would just reference that in the support letter. You're going to have some adjudicators that will return it, but you would say clearly, this is in connection with my I-485, proof that your I-485 was receipted, like a receipt notice. And if you do that, they should not ask for additional fee, but like in some instances, they may.
All right, next question from an AA. Hello, I have 2 questions. First one, what is usually time duration between USCIS notice of receipt to USCIS notice of approval for a H-1B visa transfer upon successful port of H-1B visa to a new employer.
What's the time frame he's asking?
What is the usual time duration between USCIS notice of receipt to notice of approval for a H-1B visa transfer?
I think they're taking about 6 months now, but there is no limitation on how long you can work on your receipt notice until it's approved.
The second question is there any tax issue for working in a state different from employer state? For example, I'm living and working in Virginia, but my new employer is in California. So wondering how long can I work in Virginia for the new employer as I wait on COVID to subside before I move? Thank you.
Right. Well, Virginia's they should be doing your payroll taxes out of Virginia. And as long as your employer is okay, I mean, there are tax implications for employees that are working for what they call a foreign company. That means a company that doesn't have a presence in Virginia. And your employer may be subject to Virginia corporate taxation. So you'd have to talk to a tax specialist to really get issues related to that. But from an H-1B perspective, your LCA should be an LCA that shows that you're working in Virginia, and your payroll taxes that are taken out should be taken out of Virginia.
All right. Karthik Rajashekaran, I think we already answered. Can I interfile when I move to new employer and EAD after 180 is approved? I think we answered that. AA is asking, after acknowledgement receipt, how long can be the estimated time, weeks, months, to get decision on OPT?
As we covered before, OPTs are taking at least 6 months right now. And I know that there are a couple of lawsuits to address the backlog, and the American Council of Education and NAFSA have reached out, wrote a joint letter to the Biden administration saying, there's some things that you can do to kind of address this, allowing these people to work before they get the actual approval. So we'll have to see if there's some short stopgap that's done in the interim.
Vignesh Reddy is seeking a clarification, the OPT guy who wants to sue. A response to your question on my OPT denial question. I didn't request a reinstatement from the first university, but now pursuing another master's from a different university. So what will be your advice on requesting compensation?
Well, first you're going to have to try to get reinstatement because you won't be able to change universities. Well, I guess your OPT was denied, but your status is still, I think you said it was denied after your 60,
You got the letter after 60 days. So
yeah, so, there's going to be, you have to get it reinstated. Otherwise, you're going to have an issue, even if you change universities. So try to work with them on reinstatement first before you sue them.
All right, next question is from Mariangela Bassi. Good afternoon. My question is about citizenship. A biological father can transmit his citizenship to his son born in another country only before he is 18. That's a question. And is it possible after when he's grown up? Thank you.
It depends on, there's a number of things that you're talking about, derivative and naturalization or derivative citizenship. Derivative citizenship is a very complex area because it depends on the year the person was born. There's some changes that were made last year on how to confer derivative citizenship based on the father's presence in the U.S. or the mother's presence in the U.S., whoever the citizenship, and the status of the parents' marital relationship. So it would be better if you emailed us because, like I said, it's a very convoluted area of law.
All right. Another question from an AA. I applied for B2 extension after being laid off on H-1B. just got notification online that biometric appointment was scheduled on January 29th and sent an appointment notice. If you don't receive notice by February 28th, please go to the website, uscis.gov.e-request. But I have not received any notice till date. Should I wait till 28th? Also, how much time it takes to have decision after biometric? My I-539 notice of action form I-797C says Potomac Service Center.
What I would do is, if you attended this webinar late, early on in the webinar, we talk about ways to contact the USCIS. So I would contact them now and try to get a copy of the notice ASAP.
All right. Mr. Vignesh Reddy is back again. But I re-entered the country again to get admitted in a new university with a new cells.
Okay, good. So if you've done that and you still want to pursue a cause of action against your university, email us and we'll see if we can send you a referral as to who would be able to help you with something like that.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please submit your questions, your original question in the Q&A and a follow-up clarification while the attorney is answering in the chat. So I will take Mr. Money from the chat. Hi, I have applied for AOS in October 2020, but still waiting for EAD and biometric. My wife currently working on H4 EAD and going to expire in a few months. Can I apply for H4 EAD renewal now while we are waiting for I-485 EAD?
Yes, yes, you can.
Good. Karthik Rajashekharan thinks we have not answered his question correctly. He says, sir, my question is, can I interfile be done with EAD or should it be done on H1? When I move to a new employer on EAD after 180 days and approved I-140.
I did answer your question, and this is what I said. I said I would always have an underlying H-1B, even if I have an adjustment pending. So that's your preference, but that would give you a safety net. So you can interfile whether you're on an H-1B or EAD as long as I-140 is approved, I-485 has been pending for 180 days, and you're working for same or similar employment. And then it doesn't matter that your EB2 I-140 is with your previous employer. You can interfile it at that time. Whether you work on an EAD or H-1B is irrelevant to interfiling. It is only relevant to making sure you have a safety net.
I hope that's clear, Karthik. Otherwise, I think we suggest you send an email, specifically, and then maybe she can answer. And he said, yes, thanks. Great.
Good. I'm glad.
AA is asking, why do they have secondary check for people entering using AP card? What are the chances the CBP officer does not permit to enter? How long can I be outside USA if I want to enter using AP?
Yeah, so the secondary inspection is just making sure that you're entering and you've got viable employment in the US. So they don't want you entering, let's say, especially if you've been departed for quite some time, there are a lot of people who don't have that continued offer of employment, which means, they've got to check to make sure your I-140 is still valid, that no employer has terminated or withdrawn your I-140. So when you do that, that's why I always say get a current confirmation of employment letter when you're entering. That will make things easier.
All right, another AA question. Thank you, Mani, for your appreciation. Anonymous, if I return from outside US using AP and continue working for same employer on H1, how does USCIS determine whether H1 or EAD is being utilized for employment? Is there some form to be filled after returning to indicate continuation on H-1B?
No, they would determine it. It becomes an issue when you go, if and when you go to your adjustment interview, because they'll be able to see, whether you've worked for your H-1B employer or not. And if your adjustment is denied for any reason, then, you would not have been on your H-1B status. So you wouldn't be able to just continue on the H-1B. So that's why it's important to kind of have that safety net just in case.
Okay. Another AA question. Is there any risk of going to Canada for stamping once the consulate is open there? Also,
No.
can we go to Canada and re-enter with automatic revalidation?
There are very specific rules on revalidation, especially if you're going just for merely visa stamping. And Canada has a lot more COVID restrictions. What we're going to do probably either next session or the session after is have the folks that are assisting people in Mexico as a guest to our program to talk about visa processing in Mexico.
All right. Another AA, maybe the same person. Also, how much time it takes to have a decision after biometric? My I-539 notice of action form I-797 mentions Potomac citizen. I think we answered this. So how much time it takes to have a decision after biometric? That's the question.
It depends. There is no standard processing time really anymore, just because of the limited staff they have. So, it can be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. But the key is, remember, if you filed for an I-539 change to B1, you can't stay in the US longer than your requested time. So you want to kind of keep that in mind.
Well, that's the last question.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Shaker, for moderating again this week. Thank you all for attending. If you've enjoyed our Q&A and our webinar, please make sure to share it with your friends and let them know. There's a lot of good resources in here, especially phone numbers and emails for contact purposes in the process to contact about your case. So I think a lot of your friends that are in a similar situation would really get some benefit from that.
Just one last, I think on the chat, Vignesh Reddy is back again. Said, thank you for addressing my question. I can send you the details so that you can connect me with the right person, but do you advise to go ahead with requesting compensation, or should I just ignore the things happen and focus on the current masters and prepare for OPT later?
I would do that. You just don't know what the university or the DSO may do to, refute whatever it is you said. So, I would just go ahead and, you have to show an injury in fact. So you have to show that there was a job and there was a loss of money. So, it would only be, you could only recover whatever it is your loss would have been. And in the grand scheme of things, if I were you, I would be focusing on your new masters and your new pathway.
Okay, somebody's asking an important.
I wanted to make one more thing. You can file for, even though you're in a new master's program, if you've got an employer that's willing to sponsor you, you can file during this CAP season. So if that employer is still interested, I would see if they'd be willing to sponsor you for an H-1B.
One person AA is asking, I'm not able to join your Telegram group. Not sure why. Well, we'll see what's the issue.
Why don't you? Can you email us and we can send you a link via email?
Yeah, And then Mohan Kanala is on the chat. Can I ask you a question? With biometrics done in August and EAD issued in August 2020, with priority date backing to 2003, may I know if there can be any ETA for a decision on my GC case?
Like I said, it's hard to give clear processing times now because they're working, with limited staff. So unfortunately, they're just estimated times, but it's hard to give an ETA at this point until they staff up and until the transition really takes place with the new administration, will we have a clear idea of what the processing times are.
Mr. Reddy, I think Lakshmi Challa advised you, just concentrate on your master's, because he's back saying, yes, I'm on a CPT authorization and the employer is willing to file H1. Thank you for all your help. It is really helping out people like you who have less resources to speak on such topics.
Right. No, that's the whole purpose of these webinars that were started last year. And like I said, it's not just Shaker and I, it's Kara Wood that helps put this together with two small kids. She works very hard to get these PowerPoints and the resources and everything done. So we would not be able to do these without her assistance as well. But so big shout out to Kara.
Well, there's a lot of people on the back end too. In the front of the video camera, you only see us. In the back, as in the case on a TV show, movies, there are a lot of staff, crew, right? So we got a whole lot of crew we have to thank too.
Yes, the entire team.
All the attorneys, paralegals, legal assistants, everybody. So that's about it. Anybody, if we missed answering your question, send an email to info@challalaw.com. We should be winding soon, so don't put any new questions. Just send an email. We will definitely respond to you today.
Yes, and again, thank you all for attending, and share our webinar information with your friends. And if you could not connect with us on Telegram, email us and we'll send you another link. Thank you, Shaker. And until next week, we will see you then. And have a good week.
Have a good week, all,
Stay safe.
everybody. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you. Bye-bye.